I'm Jennifer Boyd, and I'm going to be recording the coaching conversation for the Individual Professional Development Plan for the I Evaluate course, and I'm here with my career teacher, Jeff Dietz, who teaches business education here at North High School. Okay, so Jeff, the last time that we met, we had talked about your observation and kind of where we wanted to go. We talked about what was really great. We talked about some areas for refinement and kind of the next steps that we wanted to address. So do you want to kind of review, what did you find your strengths to be during that lesson and during your general instruction in the classroom?
I think probably my strength, just kind of in general, is classroom management. You know, the kids, I think for the most part, with maybe one or two exceptions, were at least as engaged as we can expect them to be in something like that. So there weren't obvious behavior issues. Most of the kids were working along with, and that's really what the goal is. And I think that in general, that's probably something that I do competently. Well is maybe a little bit further down the scale, but I'm at least competent. I also try to vary what I do. You know, unfortunately, in that particular realm with the computer, a lot of it's just demonstration and practice. So I try to change it up, sometimes with stories, sometimes with just to stop the drone of someone showing them what's happening on a computer. And so I thought that went pretty well. Actually, that probably maybe went past well and into maybe a little overboard. But you know, that happens sometimes too. So I really felt like probably there were probably the two things that I did the best while you were there that day.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, your environment in the classroom is fantastic. I think that you've done a great job developing that, and I think you'll have a lot of kids returning enrollment because of that. So that's an important area in CTE. So with the different, let's see, what did you observe about, or what range of capabilities and experience do you typically have in your classes with the computer apps?
Well, that's a Computer Apps 2 course, so everybody's at least passed Computer Apps 1, but there's everything from 99% to 60.1% in there. As far as the age of the students, it's 9 to 12. Some of them are only in just their second term of high school. Some of them are reaching the end of their careers here. And so ability-wise, everyone was at least capable of passing the first course, but there's no requirement other than passing. So there are a couple of kids who legitimately did score 60 point something, received a D- in the Apps 1 course, and then moved on to Apps 2.
Okay. Let's see. What, well, in terms of growth areas, I think that one of the things that we saw and that you discussed yourself was ways to meet the needs of all of those different levels in the classroom. Because some kids, you said, seemed they were kind of bored during a certain part, and then they were able to complete the assignment quickly. And then there's others that really needed that step-by-step that really responded well to that. So for the growth areas, one of the areas that I had it here for your professional development plan is working on changing some of those instructional strategies to address all of those students. Instead of the one-size-fits-all approach with the lecture, kind of finding ways to mix it up a little bit.
And I think that's probably very true, and I'd say that's probably just in general area that I need to be more conscious of and that I need to improve, and I've probably been able to say that for a while. But certainly I think you're on the right track there.
Well, and I also think that by setting some of these goals, it will give you an action plan, because what I've heard you kind of say in our conversations is that, oh, it's something I want to do, I just, with time, I haven't been able to get to it. So if we really kind of focus on that piece as one of our goals, I think it'll maybe give you small steps that you can take now to kind of start incorporating some of those pieces in and make those changes in your classroom. So it's supposed to support you, not give you extra work to do.
Well, it sounds supportive.
All right. Another area was, during the lesson, how did you rate kind of where your students were in terms of what they were understanding as you did your demo and your instruction before they started the work?
By how did I rate? How did I test? How did I?
And formative assessment to see if they were understanding your instructions.
I tend to just stop a lot. just kind of checkpoints, ask for understanding. I don't know that that's the most effective way, but I get a number of them that will stop me, or that will wait for a point when we stop and say, well, I haven't been able to do this, and then we'll stop and we'll take a little bit of individual time with them to get them back to where we are, and that's mostly what I do.
Okay, got it. So one of the other areas that I thought might, because let's see, what kind of information did the students, what kind of questions were they asking during that independent practice? Do you remember? I know it was kind of a long time ago.
Well, I mean, it's mostly just procedural, technical stuff. What number do I put here? And then it turns into, a lot of times it just turns into a vocabulary lesson, and that's kind of where the deficiency is. And we've tried in the past doing some vocabulary prior to the lesson, and that's honestly received extremely mixed reviews as far as effectiveness.
Yeah.
Just passing out a vocabulary list or doing some sort of vocabulary quiz ahead of time, as much as it would help, because that's really what we're talking about. With that lesson, with payments and future values, you're talking about principal and interest and things that the kids they fundamentally know what it is, but they don't know those words.
Right.
And we've tried doing some vocabulary in the past, and it just hasn't really been a real effective tool. And I don't know why the vocabulary doesn't seem to take. So it's a lot of
maybe
me
if
just
you put it in text version.
Well, maybe.
Shorten up those words a little bit.
But yeah, no, but a lot of it is just repeating it,
Right.
and just continuing to use the vocabulary in context, so that that's what they do. But as far as some sort of formal assessment, we've just never had, or I've just never had any real success going that way.
I don't know if that's the most effective way to get
Yeah,
vocabulary time either.
but that's also the biggest hole.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with
Yeah.
something like that. That's the biggest hole. That would make the biggest difference. If they understood the vocabulary, it would go much more quickly.
Okay. What do you see a correlation between their assignments that they do? You said about 90% of those kids were proficient on their assignment. Then do you do a final assessment in the class as well? So do you see a correlation between that? Are their assessment scores similar to what their assignment scores are?
In
For
general,
the most part?
yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. So one of the goals that I had identified was this one here. I'll go ahead and put it, and then we can update this to what's realistic. Okay. So Mr. Dietz will develop one lesson in each unit for Computer Apps 2 this term, so they're a term course, that incorporates a new strategy from shared resources to increase differentiation, including activities specifically for extension, and then reflect on that implementation, sharing that reflection with me. So let me break this. That's a lot of words there.
There's a lot of words. Maybe I should have taken a vocabulary test.
So basically what this means is that instead of trying to do this every day, because I think that's very overwhelming, this is a slow step in. So you have different units. You have an Excel unit. You have a PowerPoint unit. So it's looking at one lesson in each unit that you kind of modify. So instead of changing your entire unit, your entire course before you start teaching, you just take it piece by piece. So you decide on one lesson. So it could be this PMT lesson, or in your Excel program. But you just take that lesson and you work on changing the strategy to make sure that there is a piece that addresses those lower skill kids, and then those kids that are really, dynamite and taking over. So you just kind of try a different strategy. And now what I've heard you kind of say in our conversations is that when you've given the extension activities, it's just more work and the kids aren't really interested, or, that kind of, is that correct? What I
mean, it depends, but I mean, there's certain kids that'll just gobble up everything that you give them. And then there's the kids that are in between that are very proficient at the skills, but really don't want it because they know that they're proficient enough,
right?
Even to get A's.
Yeah, right.
So,
I know.
Yeah.
It's that empathy. Well, and so what this would encourage you to do is to try different types of strategies. Sometimes, and I found myself doing this in the classroom, I would try one strategy and it wouldn't go well, and I'm like, well, it's not gonna work, and kind of be done with it. So what this would do is it would encourage you to keep coming back and looking at a shared resource, which I'm gonna share with you. But look at that and look at some different options and maybe try some different things and see if one of those, happens to stick. But it would be, how many units do you have left?
2.
units,
Yeah,
so it would be
2.5.
2 lessons within, a lesson within each of those units that you could, modify slightly and try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but that's something that then we can discuss at the end, of the year, whenever the cycle ends, and talk about if it was successful or not, and kind of what year. And then the big piece of it is that reflection piece. So then after the lesson, you sit and you just do a paragraph about what worked, what didn't work. Was it beneficial for your students? Was it not? Would this be something you'd want to try again? Could this become a bigger piece where you build your course around it, or is this, a waste of time and did nothing, besides just steal your time? So does that goal seem like something
I think it's a reasonable goal.
Okay, is there any adjustment that you want to make on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Other than all the big words you used.
Okay, I see. So the second goal, I had it really focused on informal formative assessment, but what I'm hearing you say is that really what the students are able to do in the class is reflected on their final assessment, so they're learning what they need to learn, even if there's not a constant back and forth about if they're all getting it or not.
Right, and specifically with what you observed, a formative assessment there really isn't. It's not appropriate because it's all completely new. There's no expectation of any prior knowledge.
Right.
That's been just borne out via experience. That's just kids don't even know that stuff is there. So they don't know it exists. The formative assessment is just that. I could say, here, try to figure this payment.
Right.
And I'd get a bunch of blank stares. I mean, because I've done it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and for the most, I guess instead of doing a whole goal about that, the big disconnect I saw, and I think I mentioned this, was that the assignment that they did, you said the biggest question was the procedural, where do we get this data? So you could probably just address that by, okay, here's the assignment you guys are going to do, here's where these pieces are, now get to work. A little bit more guidance in terms of what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Because it seemed like the practice, they didn't have to pull data from a source.
Right.
It was just given to them, and then in the assignment they had to pull that data, and they didn't know where to go for that. So I think I'm going to kind of scrap the informal assessment goal, and what I hear you saying a lot is vocabulary. And I don't know if you're aware of how many amazing vocabulary strategies there are out there, from anything from just having like a glossary printed off, or having them, a foldable, or different things like that. But just even quick little vocabulary pieces. I know you mentioned a word wall and that kind of thing. So I want to kind of focus the second goal more on vocabulary. But I don't know if I feel like the first goal that we have there will keep you busy for this term. So the vocabulary is really something I would like to look at potentially next term. Maybe we re-meet before third term and talk about how that could go in. So I'm just going to strike through this one here for now. And we're going to come back to that at a future date so we don't overwhelm. All right. So essentially the evidence that you would, for the first one, developing the new strategy for each of those would just be your reflection as the key piece of evidence that we'll share and talk about. Some examples of student work, so you can pull, the assignments of students that, what the difference was in ranges, this assignment that they did for the extra support, or this one for the extension piece, and we can kind of look at the differences in their abilities and look at that. You might want to get some student feedback on this. So ask them, did you like learning this way? Did you like the lecture better? Kind of see what they enjoy learning. And then grades for the course. And I'll give a copy of this so you don't have to remember all of it. So essentially, how do you see, this will be a lot of you doing the work first and then us kind of coming back together and reflecting on it and discussing it. So I have the action and the time frame here. Really, we're going by the end of the term. We'll start with an outline of what strategies you want to use. You only have 2 more, so that's only 2 to look at, and then I can support you in developing those lessons to actually do that strategy. And then I'll come into the classroom to observe. I don't have to come in, when you're actually doing the strategy, but I can come in between and we can talk about it. And I'm going to give you the document with the links to the examples of those differentiation strategies, different things that you can try. And I'm always available via email if you have additional questions. I can come visit the classroom. The CTE website also has a strategy section that you can utilize there. And then you can also talk with your CTT team about different ideas. Are there any other supports or resources that you feel that you would like to be successful at this?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. And the indicators of success, really what we're looking for is increased student proficiency and advanced marks, and then that increased student engagement during the instruction time. Just making, trying to hit 100% of that instead of what we saw in November. Okay. So that's kind of the plan. So do you agree with this goal? Do you feel this is something you're able to accomplish? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything additional that you'd like to add or change about this before we sign it and seal it?
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Well, then we'll kind of follow up with this throughout the term and add more as the year progresses.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.